this is Lisa Richards, and you're listening to Retrospectives with John Broughton on KC Radio 97.7 FM.
Don't wanna argue, don't wanna fight, don't wanna read your mind, tread on eggshells.
All right, well, if you're all comfortable and set to go, we'll get started here. I'll try not to push your memory too much, but we'll see how we go.
Oh, I've got my laptop here in case I forget.
Oh, that's handy.
I'll just look on my website. That'll tell me.
Yeah, it's all there. Just to begin, what was the first music that really struck a chord with you? I believe your mother's piano playing was a vivid early memory for you.
Yeah, my mother played piano, and I do remember that. I remember her playing the piano, and I also remember that there was a turntable in my parents' bedroom, and in the mornings, maybe it was on the weekends, I don't really remember, but I remember hearing Edith Piaf in their bedroom on the turntable, and just, feeling like that was so powerful. Like I didn't know what she was singing, but I didn't need to.
Mm.
So, yeah, I just remember Edith Piaf. And then, there was all kinds of music played. I had also had older brothers and sisters, and there was a turntable downstairs. And so, yeah, there was lots of musicals, or another one that my sisters liked, a musical. So Oliver Twist and My Fair Lady, and then there was Black Sabbath, and it was a real
that's a contrast, yeah,
mixture. That's right. So and then my parents, they were into classical music and jazz, and so I heard a lot of that stuff.
Now,
on their turntable, and then downstairs there was the musicals and Black Sabbath.
Now, the story of your childhood and your younger life is quite extraordinary, and you haven't shied away from discussing it in other interviews that I've seen. And without going too deeply into it, can you just give our listeners getting to know you a brief synopsis of how it shaped the person you are today?
Yes. Well, how did it shape me? Indelibly. Is that a way to say it? I mean, I can't escape from the things that occurred to me, that happened to me before I grew up, and I don't necessarily understand them, but I do think I've been able to process them in some way over the years.
Mm-hmm.
But music has been a real force for me in terms of making sense of the world around me. And it doesn't mean that everybody gets to hear those songs all the time, because maybe they don't make it out of my bedroom, but they get written, and I think that was the first thing that music gave me, was a voice and a space where I could say whatever I wanted to say without somebody shutting me down, or telling me I wasn't allowed to, oh, you shouldn't feel that way, or oh, you can't say that. But so music gave me that space, and I think I don't know. That's such a big question. How has it shaped me? So I am definitely a product of everything that I have experienced in my life. But I think that's the same for everybody. I think, you are also. So I don't I don't know. Maybe I was forced to kind of look at it all a little more closely because I didn't really, I didn't come into early adulthood functioning very well in the world. So it was really like I had to deal with all of that in order to have a life, basically. Yeah.
Your life in those earlier years certainly would have given you a lifetime's worth of subject matter for songs. Have there been times when you've been conscious of not drawing too much on that time in your life for your songs and been actively sorting other avenues?
Yes, well, that's an interesting thing too, because I think it doesn't seem to really matter when I write songs and I play them, like actually, and even my family, like I had one of my brothers came to a concert and there's none of the songs that he were written about me on this particular concert. Like I had written an album and there was very, I'd written, they were inspired by a book that I had read that really impacted me. But I guess just the way that I write, people always think that they're about me. Mm-hmm. So I think it's also an interesting observation that I've made is that maybe there is something intrinsically personal about the way that I write songs, even when I'm not writing about me. Like I might be writing about, it might be inspired by something that I read or a movie but it still comes out, first person, or it still comes out feeling, personal. So, yeah.
So no matter what path your life had taken in those early days, do you think you still would have been drawn to music just the same?
Yeah, I would have done something completely ridiculous. That's the way I look at music. Because I sometimes think now, I'm like, well, what if I couldn't make music? And I was like, well, I'd do something equally ridiculous. That, like I'd write, what if I couldn't sing? Oh, well, I'd probably start writing or, I don't know. So I think I'm always looking for somewhere to channel that part of me that I don't really understand and that I don't really know what to do with. But I think, would I have, I don't know if, I have no idea. I can only speak about what my life was, how I came about. Now, my mother was a concert pianist. However, she did not encourage people to play music. I was the only one who got to have piano lessons. And when I was 7, I had piano lessons, not for very long. I don't know, it might have been a few weeks, it might have been a few months. But then when she had the car accident and she couldn't play the piano anymore, my father sold the piano, and we were pretty much actively discouraged from playing any instruments. So the thing about music for me is that it is something that came to me, like the desire to make music came to me. I'm just thinking because, interestingly, I am about to embark on a new project, which is writing a one-person show, which uses my life story and songs that I've written. And I don't really know what that looks like yet, but I can see, how music, I don't know if music, the desire to make music came to me I didn't ask for it. And in fact, I tried to ignore it. So I did not think it was possible for me to make music. I don't know why. I just thought that was the realm of other people. You know, it wasn't a possibility for me, like that I could maybe sing. So I remember when I had that very first thought, like, oh, maybe you could sing. And then, you know, I didn't actually start singing for another 10 years after that. But that little voice is really the thing that it kind of gave me a purpose, you know, a reason to live. I mean, that really, it was the driver. It was the driver for almost all of the good things that have happened in my life have come about because of music.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's an interesting question.
So you're a relatively late starter in terms of taking on songwriting and playing guitar. How do you look back on your very first songwriting efforts now, when you were still learning the craft?
Interesting. You asked the most interesting question.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. So the thing about me is there's very little in my life that I go back to and I'm like, oh my God, that was terrible. I wish I'd done this instead. I mean, I made a horrible mess of so many things in my life, but I am not somebody who goes, oh, what if I'd had different parents, or what if I hadn't been abused, or what if my parents hadn't given me drugs when I was 4, or, you know, what if my mother hadn't had a car accident. I've never been that kind of a person, and I don't know why. But it's the same thing about the early songs. So the only thing I think about those early songs is they were so raw. So the things that I was writing about were so, I think, possibly not easy for people to always listen to. For example, I went to this folk festival in Colorado, and I was a finalist in a songwriting competition. And I got to perform, and then they had song circles at night in the campground around the fire. And I remember I had a song about wanting to kill myself, but not killing myself. Like, it was about the conflict between not wanting to be alive and yet wanting to have a good life. You know, those two things. And I sang this song, and everybody in the song circle just looked at me afterwards, because, you know, everybody had been doing songs about, you know, their cat, or, you know, just a train, or, you know, something. And then I just came out with this song, but you know, I wasn't great at reading the room. Well, to be fair, I wasn't writing songs about cats or trains. So not much I could do about that. But I think, so I look back on some of those early songs. Like, I had there's a song on my first album about eating disorders and disappearing. And there's another song on that first album about violence, called I Don't Think So. And I remember, you know, I was living in New York City when I made that album, and it just, you know, that was what I had to offer up then, was just, you know, these songs that I had written. And yeah, it was always interesting to me, actually, the number of men that would come up to me afterwards, especially the song about the violent relationship. And people would come up afterwards and tell me what a powerful song it was. And that was always an interesting thing to me, because I was a little bit embarrassed about the intensity of the songs that I wrote.
I saw that before that move you made to America, you spent some time busking in King's Cross. How do you look back on that in terms of how valuable an experience it was in terms of developing the craft of working to an audience?
I think the thing that it gave me, first of all, was I got to practice being courageous. So a huge part of my adulthood has been about learning how to take healthy risks. And I think having the courage to go and sing a cappella because I couldn't play an instrument, cover songs because I didn't have any songs that I wrote, and because I just decided, it's now or never. Mm-hmm. What am I waiting for? And just going out and singing on the street. Yeah, I learned a lot. I don't know if I learned how to keep singing when people ignored me. I learned how to, when I was singing in King's Cross, I would hang out with street workers and homeless people, and I think I learned a lot about just being a human being among other flawed human beings. I also met other street musicians when I was doing that, and so I started playing with other musicians. Like there would be loose collaborations that would spring up, where there'd be like more than one person singing. So I think, but I do think that really impacted the way that I sing now that I think about it, which I've had the opportunity to reflect on that lately, because that was how I started singing, with a cappella. Mm-hmm. And I think, with no rhythm, no instrument, just me leaning into my voice. So yeah, I do think I learned a lot about my instrument, not intellectually, but just, I learned how to project my voice, and I learned how to sustain that kind of singing on the street for hours without, getting hoarse.
It's a very distinctive part of what you do, your singing voice. It's quite unique. Would that be the moment there where you felt you really found your voice, in those busking times?
No, again, it's just such a foggy distance. It's funny because I just feel like I went full circle with my voice in the last 2 months. Like, I felt like I started out just singing, and so everything was about singing because I didn't have any other skills. And then I started to, learn to play guitar and write songs, and then it's like I became a songwriter, and my singing, I kind of forgot that I was a singer, and that I started a cappella. And there was one song that I used to do a cappella, and it went onto my first album. There was a Nina Simone did a version of it. That's the first place I heard it, called Plain Gold Ring. Mm-hmm. And that kind of became my signature song, and not just in Australia. Like, when I went to New York, I first started singing with the band there, I used to do that song every set. And the fella that I worked with on my last album, who I also worked with on my first album, like, he produced my first album, a middle album, and my last album. And he still, whenever I play, he's still like, "Are you going to do Plain Gold Ring?" And I didn't really get it. Like, I didn't get it. I was just like, it just seems a bit indulgent, doing an a cappella song. But I think there really is something special about singing a cappella. Because it really is only about the vocal instrument and leaning into that. And yeah, so yeah. I don't remember what your question was. Sorry.
I think you covered it. You spent many years in America. What was the initial impetus to make that choice to go there?
I was in a band in Sydney, and the drummer was from New York, and he had an idea. So we did a recording with the band in Sydney, and then he was going to go and shop, the demo in New York City. And so I went over with him to shop the demo. But then what happened was I stayed there. Yeah. So I went for 6 weeks. I stayed for 6 months. And then I met lots of really good people over there. And I mean, I think people encouraged me to move over there. It was just a very different environment to being in Australia. It was like for the first time I said, I really want to be a singer. And they're like, yeah, well, why not? Yeah, you need to move over here. And so, yeah, I did. I just packed everything up. I got rid of everything, packed a suitcase, and went. And then 22 years later, I came back.
And a lot of that time you spent in Austin, Texas, well known for its musical songwriting community. Did you find it a welcoming musical community when you got there?
Yes. So same thing happened. I went to Austin. For South by Southwest. I got a showcase, and then I sublet my legal sublet in New York City, and stayed at the youth hostel down there for a month. And I just met all these musicians, and they were like, "You need to move to Austin. You need to move to Austin." And so I did. I moved to Austin, and the community there was very welcoming, and I played lots and lots of shows, and I toured with a lot of the local songwriters, so we would go out and do tours, and it was just, I think in Austin was the first time I realized that you could have a career without being a superstar. Like that there's a whole world of musicians who have a good career and they make interesting work and they're not starving and they're not superstars. Like, I didn't know there was, and they're still doing it into their 70s, 80s, 90s, touring, playing music, releasing, recording. I was like, oh my God, I had no idea. I thought, pretty much you're done when you're like 25. Like, pretty much at that point, the major record industry in New York City had me believing that, I was already too old by the time I started writing.
No, there's a lot to be said for just ticking along in the slow lane rather than have that rapid rise to stardom and that rapid crash straight after.
Yes. I really appreciate my life now. I think I'm able to, I feel like I just keep getting stronger as in the way that I communicate with music. Like everything, from my playing to my songwriting to the way I am in concert, how I connect with people. I feel like there isn't anything that hasn't improved the longer that I've done it. So I think what's happening is I'm just getting a body, I'm just growing this body of work. I don't know what, where's it going? No idea. But you got to do something while you're here on the earth. And exactly. So this is what I'm doing. apparently.
Talk about your songwriting. Is it the method or procedure of your songwriting changed through the years with experience, or have you found a tried or true method that you've always stuck with?
No, I think, well, I would say my tried and true method is to sit down and see what song comes out. Now, has it changed over the years? Yes. I've given myself all kinds of different tasks at different points to kind of develop my own songwriting practice. So, right now I'm writing a song a week in an hour, which I've been doing on and off for 2 or 3 years. And that for me works because I don't like the negative voices in my head, or the editor, as I like to call, doesn't if I just say, okay, I put a timer on and I'm like, I have an hour, that's it, write the song. And so it doesn't mean that they're all good songs, but it means that I'm practicing. And then, a couple of years ago, 2 albums back, I did a thing where I did 30 songs in 30 days.
Yep.
So I just wrote 30 songs in 30 days. So the thing that I've been doing in the last 2 years, though, is joining different songwriting groups where there's challenges and where there's, so they give you some direction so that I have some focus for my writing. So I think, and also the last couple of albums I've been writing on piano, which is kind of new for me because I'm not really a piano player, but I'd say at least half the songs on my last album I wrote on piano. So I'm always trying new things to stay creative in terms of my songwriting. I don't think the actual practice, I don't think how I write has changed that much, but I think I just keep looking at different ways to kind of approach it so that when I get stuck, I can challenge myself, like by having a parameter of like, okay, I'm going to write a song with 2 chords, for example. See what happens.
One way of exercising your songwriting muscle, I've noticed you offer a custom songwriting service on your website.
Yes, I do. And actually the last song that I wrote a song for a 16-year-old young woman. It was a birthday present. And that song has turned out to have, I just recorded it. So, not for her, like I recorded it for her for the gift, but actually I just recorded it because it seems like it's people really respond to that song. So it's been an interesting thing. And another song that I wrote was for a 25-year wedding anniversary. And so, I feel really blessed that I get to, in that particular case, like talk with people about their lives and about what's important to them and then write a song. It's really a special thing.
Now you do some teaching, conducting singing and vocal lessons and songwriting workshops as well. Do they become a learning experience for yourself sometimes? At times, as a teacher, do you find you're teaching yourself sometimes and some things, and do you even learn from your students?
Yes. I think, I learn from my students. I learn from other people. Generally, I think I've always had that. Actually, it's been a kind of a big part of of how I go about things is like, if I see somebody do something and then I go, well, if they can do it, then I should be able to do it. And that gives me the courage to try something new. That's actually how I started playing for the first time. When I was a terrible guitar player when I first started playing guitar. It was painful. But I'd been singing for a long time, and I met this other woman, and we swapped songs, and she wasn't a very good guitarist, and she was out playing shows. And I said, well, if she's out playing shows, then I should be out playing shows. So, and I mean, I've done that a lot in my life with all kinds of things, like just that inspiration of if somebody else can do it, then I should be able to do it too. So that's been an interesting thing. But the thing about teaching is I do think, I think if I listen to myself when I'm teaching, I can learn as well. And in fact, I'm just about to teach an online songwriting course because all my shows have been cancelled. And I'm like, what? Okay, well, I guess I could do a little Zoom songwriting course. So it's interesting, when they talk about pivoting, it's just like, I feel like I learn a lot all the time from people, from, what's going on in the world, from people I'm in relationship with. Yeah. I think it's good to be curious.
There's such a melting pot of musical styles in your music through your albums. So it's hard to categorise for those who like to pigeonhole. If you worked in a record store and had to file your album somewhere, where would you file yourself?
That's a good question. Yeah. Well, my husband likes to say to me that singer-songwriter is a genre. So I would probably, I would say singer-songwriter, but I also think that that's just there is no real focus. I definitely think there's an element, like a strong kind of element of jazz and blues in what I do. I mean, I don't even really know what that means, but I feel like that flavor is like at the foundation of everything that I do. But it's not. So, if I tried to say I was jazz or blues, those people would string me up, because I'm not. I don't do jazz. I don't do blues. I don't do country. So, I guess I just have to go in the singer-songwriter genre.
Now, your last album was recorded in New York, and you received some funding via Arts ACT with a grant. Was that a relatively easy procedure to go through, or were there many hoops to jump through to get that?
I had never written a grant application before, so I applied twice. It was really different. Like, for me, applying for a grant, I just applied for my third grant, and it's still a super challenging thing. It made me think about what I do in a completely different way, because, it isn't good enough to just go, well, it's been a while since I did an album. I need to do another album, and I'd like to go work with this person because, I've worked with them before and we work well together. because the grant that I was applying for was about, there are specific parameters that you have to address in your application, and you have 3 sections of 400 words each where you get to address, why it is you want to do this thing in this place with this person. And it can't have anything to do, and it has to be like I had to really think about it. And I had to have a lot of conversations with other people because I had never thought about my work that way before. So I'm going to say, yeah, it was a challenge, and the last one was a challenge too. I think it isn't enough just to have a good idea and say, hey, I got this good idea, because I'm competing with a bunch of other people who have good ideas for a finite amount of funding. So, yeah. So I was excited to get that grant. And I still spent a lot of money. I mean, I think it covered half the album cost. Yeah. And it was a $10,000 grant. So.
Now, like many artists during the last 18 months, you've done a bit of live streaming. How important has it been for you to maintain that connection with your audience through that means without being able to do live audience shows?
Yeah, I have come to really love live streaming, and I am somebody that I think 2 years ago I had never live streamed. So 2 years ago, I was like, oh my God, this is so weird. Why do I have to do it? Like, what's going on? Because I started doing it before COVID, but not much before COVID. So I have found that it's a great comfort. So yeah, I have a little Facebook group, and I live stream there every Sunday for 30 minutes, and I've been doing that regularly for the last year. I should probably do some other ones, but that's the only one I've been maintaining. But it is, I live stream. My father died last year in Queensland. I couldn't go to Queensland because Queensland was shut, and I did a live stream. I wrote a bunch of songs for him, and I shared them with people. I talked about his life, because I couldn't go to the funeral, and I couldn't be there when he was dying. Mm. And they gave me permission after he died. He was almost 103, so he was an interesting fella. Mm. So for me, it's been not something that I necessarily want to do, but every time I show up for it, I feel better afterwards, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is what I do. I need to connect with people. Yeah. This is how I do it. So yeah, I do think it's really, really important. And I've been able to do some shows, and a lot have been cancelled recently. I did a little bit of a tour in November last year. It's been very spotty, but even that, it was so amazing going out and meeting people and hanging out, and it was just really good. I did a regional tour, and it was a really wonderful experience.
And just one thing before I let you go, you touched on this one-person show that you've been working on. How far advanced is that?
Yes. Well, I just put in a grant application to develop it. But the grant application, so I've been talking with a Melbourne person, Francis Greenslade, do you know Francis Greenslade?
Yeah, that name rings a bell. Yeah.
So he's on Mad as Hell. Television. He does a lot of work with Sean McCullers, but he has a rich history of, acting on stage, in television. He's a writer. He's an acting coach. He's done directing. Anyway, so I've been talking to him, and the funding is for him to come and work with me for a week as a dramaturg to put the show together. So if I don't get the grant, I'll still move forward in some way. I don't know what that'll look like. We'll see. But yeah, so it's for a development grant that will happen next year, between April and August.
Oh,
Yeah.
brilliant. Something to look forward to.
So, yes. So, yeah. So we'll see how that goes. But I'm excited about that. So, yeah. So the place that I've come to with all this is just keep creating stuff and stretching. The other thing I learned to do in lockdown was record and produce myself. So I have a 5-song EP that I released, the first single, Houdini, and that these 5 songs I recorded, arranged, and produced myself. So it's been a big 18 months.
Sure has indeed.
In terms of, what am I going to do? Oh, I want to tour. Oh, you can't tour. Here, create another album's worth of material. Make another album. Here, a 1-person show. That might be a good idea. Yeah, so it's been a lot of that.
It's fantastic.
But, yeah.
Hey, Lisa, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute joy and a pleasure to chat with you. Thank you for all the wonderful songs so far, and we're sure you're really only just getting started.
Yes, I'm a lifer, so yeah, I'm just getting started.
We look forward to the next installment.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time.
Okay.
All the
Thanks.
best. Cheers.
Bye.